I don't care if it's the best. I don't care about accolades or anything. If you're going to listen to my stuff and you're going to listen to these songs, I feel like in a way you are holding space for me. Whether you come from it with negativity or positivity, each song you're carving out like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 4 minutes for me to express how I'm feeling. And I just think that's really beautiful with music in general.
Welcome to Making Conversation with me, Grant Brydon, a podcast about music, creativity and careers. For this series, I've sat down with a range of artists and creative professionals in order to learn about how their unique experiences and perspectives can help us in our own creative and business practices. For this episode, I spoke to singer, songwriter and producer Orion Sun. In the midst of a global pandemic, she has released her debut album, Hold Space For Me, a vulnerable and emotive collection of songs that's suited to soothing listeners in uncertain times. In conversation, she's as open and honest as in her music, and during our interview, recorded via Facetime from her home in Philadelphia, we discussed the theme of self-isolation that was already present in her work, her self-sufficient approach to making art, and how she's worked on overcoming struggles with doubt. So how have you been finding this adjustment that we're all having to go through of life in quarantine?
Very interesting. I'm an introverted person, so at first it wasn't deviating from what I normally do, but then I just started to realize as time was going on that I spend a lot of time outside, and it just felt weird also to drop my album during this time and not be able to tour. And so it's just been a lot of reflection and just, an emotional roller coaster for sure.
Yeah, I'm personally feeling like there's different waves, and some days feel better than others, and then some can be more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just so awkward because, this album has just been the anchor of so many of my days for so many years. And for it to be out and sort of not have this thing where I'm like, okay, can't wait to improve it or see where I can go from here, or just have it just be out. And then also I don't have my other anchors that I normally have that anchor me to the day, like going to the gym or going to a restaurant or going to see a friend. And so I'm really in this spot where, some days are nice. Like I try to, create. I started painting, which feels really nice. And other days it's a battle of trying not to beat myself up for not doing anything and literally just being still and, not doing anything.
Yeah, I keep seeing these kind of two schools of thought. There's the one that's like, we should be being productive and learning new skills and using the time. And then there's the other one, which is just like, take it easy, relax, give yourself some space, because we've never been through this before and it's kind of just difficult to get through a day sometimes.
Yeah, that's definitely been my motto. Just literally take every day as it comes, and what comes of it is just that. Yeah, just to be a little gentler with myself.
Yeah, for sure. So where is it that you're spending your time in self-isolation? Where are you right now?
I'm spending it in my home in Philadelphia. Yeah, and it's cool. Like I don't deny myself the pleasure of going for a walk when it gets too crazy, but sort of just been keeping inside. I'm sort of blessed. I have a little cement backyard, little square that I try to catch the sun when it comes.
So you've released Hold Space For Me, which is your debut album, and you've put that out in a time where it's difficult to get out and promote it in the way that you might have wanted to. And I think as a music fan, I really appreciate you doing that. And this is the type of music that I think is really needed right now. I wondered whether there was ever a discussion around pushing the album back, or whether it would still come out, or whether that was not a thought that ever crossed your mind.
Oh, it definitely crossed my mind. I was feeling a lot. The week leading up to the album, and just the slow realization that, yeah, all of these things you had planned are either postponed or just not happening. I was like, okay, you know what is going to happen is this album is going to come out, because I was finished this album March of last year, and I was really hoping to put it out last year. But, everything in due time. And so by the time March of this year came around, I was like, nah. Yeah, this sucks, but like at least I can release this from me and have it just out in the world. Because I don't know, when I release music, especially back in the day, I would just like finish a song and just post it on SoundCloud, and not necessarily for recognition, but so I could move on. Like I literally needed to release it. And it always feels like a weight has been lifted off of my chest. So to this day, releases still feel like that. So it was very important for me to just sort of follow it through and get it off so I can make other stuff.
It's interesting looking back that there's been this theme of self-isolation present in your work for some time. You're the sole character in 2 of your music videos, Coffee for Dinner and Lightning. I wondered what had drawn you to that theme ahead of everything that's happening now.
Yeah, it's very life makes me laugh so much. But yeah, I was definitely going through a time for like I think the past like 5 or 6 years of just feeling like I couldn't really talk to people about what I was going through, or felt comfortable confiding in my close friends all the way about the things that I was feeling and how just these external things in my life are affecting me internally. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that out. And, at the end of the day, music has always been a constant of mine, has always been a thing that I never felt guilty for expressing myself with. So, yeah, I've definitely felt isolated. And it's just so peculiar now because I was starting to sort of get out of that dark place. And then now the whole world is in a dark place, it feels like. So I'm still in it. But I'm a hopeful person, and I know that everything is temporary, even the good stuff. So this will be over soon enough.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that you're looking forward to getting out and performing these songs for people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, up into this, oh, man. There was a point where I was practicing every day and just really excited, and because I've just been an opener for so long, and for bands that I love but that are not in my considered genre in my head, the genre that is me in my head. So it just felt cool to, one, headline a show, but also curate a lineup where it made sense to me.
And I noticed you've been spending some of the time in quarantine doing beat battles on Instagram Live.
Oh yeah, but I feel like everyone is just like on the internet, so we've been kind of bouncing between Instagram Live and Zoom. Which I've never heard of before quarantine, so shout out to them. But yeah, I've just been kind of like hosting, because I'm a producer and a beat maker myself, and I have tons of friends in Philadelphia that produce and make beats, and I miss sort of getting together and, I don't know, sharing our beats, sharing knowledge of music. So I was like, let's just kind of take it to the internet and see what happens. But I was so surprised to see that my reach kind of was beyond Philly, was even beyond the country. And it was just cool to kind of bring these people together to share beats, just, wholesome, competitive fun.
So taking it way back, what's the first memory that you have of hearing some music and being affected by it?
I think I've always loved music, but the first time I actually heard a song, like heard it, and realized the power. I was going to a funeral with my mom and my brothers, and I forget for who, because I was really young, but she was playing this Fred Hammond CD, and, we listened to it the whole day, but then, a couple of days went by, I guess weeks or whatever, and then I heard that song again, and I instantly was transported back to the back seat of that car, where we were going, how we were feeling, what was happening. And I think that was the moment where I realized, like, whoa, like music is the closest thing we have to time travel. It is, and it just became really addicting. And I really liked that music was always a part of my life in this way. But that was the first time I realized that there's something more to music than what I thought.
And what was the first music that you felt like was your music that you were bringing back into the house yourself and that you were discovering?
The first album I ever bought with my own money was 808s and Heartbreak by Kanye West. And Streetlights is still one of my favorite songs. And I'm just so conflicted with how I feel about him now. But when I just think of the music, I am really grateful for that album. I thought it was really beautiful. I thought it was a really good combination of sounds that I like. But yeah, that was like the first secular CD or like CD that I bought with my own will, for sure. Yeah.
And what was it that urged you to first start creating and making music yourself?
I'm a firm believer of like, sometimes you gotta just, if you want something to get done, you have to do it yourself. Because before I started producing, I taught myself guitar, and I was like, this is great. Like, I will play guitar, write music on the guitar, and just sing with my guitar, and that's it. But I started like YouTube surfing of like type beats and all these things, and like nothing ever quite fit me. It was like, maybe I've gotten close, like maybe just like a half size down and it would be perfect. And so I met up with this guy, and we were just like cooling or whatever, just chilling. And he was like, like, let's just make a project. And I was like, oh, word? Okay, let's do this. So yeah, I was like going over his place like almost every day after work, and just like putting in hours and putting in just, I don't know, whatever. And then at the end of it, he was like, okay, so $5,000 for everything. And I was like, there's broke, and then there's like levels underneath broke, and I'm like at the bottom. Like, I have no money. So I felt really betrayed and really just like heartbroken, because I notice in the industry too, like, money is always talked about last, and it's like, no, like, I would feel more comfortable if we talked about how much this is going to cost before I move forward, because I would have never did this. So he ended up keeping everything, which wasn't too much, but I was like, okay, you know what? I kind of looked at producing like playing a guitar, which is different than learning to sing. When you learn to sing, you can be bad for like weeks, and then all of a sudden you hit the note, and then you got it. But then you have to like keep doing it to ensure that you have it. But with something like guitar or production, literally, if you do it every single day, you see progress. It's not this thing where it's like, I hope I get good. It's like, yeah, if you put in the work, you'll get good. And I like things like that. So I was like, you know what, let me just take a year, not do anything, but just work and learn this software. And I was really blessed that a friend of mine, she had like upgraded to a new laptop. So she gave me like her 2008 MacBook. And I was just like using GarageBand on there, like no tomorrow. And that's how I made my first project.
That self-sufficiency has been a thread that's also run throughout your work, from coding your own website and designing that to creative directing and animating videos. Do you think it's important that an artist can get hands-on in other elements of the work outside of the music?
Outside of being an artist, I do want to say that I think as we progress as a human race and just the progression of how everything is going, I think it's really important for people to at least know a little bit of code and to at least know how to work certain technologies. But as an artist, I'm like, look, I think it's important if you have a vision. Like, I think it's important if you know exactly where you want to go. Because I know some people that really shine when beats are given to them, lyrics are given to them, vocals are given to them. You know what I mean? So I'm not really the kind of person that's like, this is the only way that I think art should be made. But as an artist that sort of has a complete vision, and not necessarily complete in which I know exactly where I'm going to go and what it looks like, but I know the path at least that I have to take in terms of what sounds I like, what I want to write about, all of those kinds of things. I think it's really important to really be hands on and in all aspects of the art that you do. Because, like, no one can do it for you. That's the thing. It's just like no one can know what's going on inside of your brain other than you. And I think it's really important to surround yourself with people that have the patience to sort of like pull it out of you. It's best if you sort of lay the groundwork.
I guess sometimes we have that thing where our taste level is ahead of our actual ability.
Yeah.
And I wondered how close you get in your work to that initial idea or vision that you have for it in your head.
I get pretty close. I mean, in my head, I'm nowhere near where I want to be yet in all aspects of my artistry. Like I truly feel like a baby, just sort of fumbling around, sort of like Velma in Scooby Doo, just like looking for her glasses on the ground when it comes to music. But, you know, when I find those glasses and I put them on, it's very clear to see that, yeah, I made this beat. It came out of me and it is as close as expressing how I'm feeling in this moment. But yeah, I mean, to get to where I want to be, it's definitely every day. Just I'm learning piano right now and just really just trying to make it feel as natural as playing guitar feels to me, and that can only just improve getting really, really close to expressing how I feel. And I only say that because when I start a song, I don't really have a plan out other than, okay, I need to express myself. So it's never like I want to go into this song playing, you know, D minor and, you know what I mean? Or like anything like that. It's just like, this is how I'm feeling. Let me try to score it.
What was it about the guitar that made you gravitate towards that first?
I think it was just such a great companion to my words. To this day, I always check my lyrics on guitar to make sure I feel them and they make sense to me. Yeah, I just thought it was really a really cool vessel. It's kind of explaining why you love your first love. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The song Antidote feels like a really important moment for you in your career. What kind of space were you in when you wrote that song, and where did that song come from?
Yeah, I wrote that song during a time where everything was falling apart around me, but I managed to get my first car. And just the freedom I felt being able to go anywhere. Like, I would say in my head all the time, like, wow, if I wanted to drive to California, I could. Or if I wanted to drive to the beach today, I could. And it was funny because my first car was a minivan. So it just felt right to just sort of provide transportation for my friends. Like, we drove up to SOBs in New York to see a show, and I would drive my friends home, and I just loved driving so much, and it was just such a bright spot in such a dark time. And so, yeah, I just sat down, was playing with these piano chords, and yeah, the rest is history. I mean, I definitely have a couple sets of lyrics to that beat, but I think completing this song gave me the realization that from that point on, I will know when every song is done. Because the feeling I got my third time just trying different lyrics and how it felt listening back to it, I was like, ooh, kind of got goosebumps. And then I immediately had the car tested. And then I was like, this is finished. Like, but obviously, looking back now, it was just so much that I've learned, you know, from moving on from GarageBand to Logic, now to Ableton, that I wish I held on to that song just a little bit longer because I would have tweaked a few things. But in turn, I think that's kind of what's charming about the song. Just me just using the resources that I had and just delving into my brain and my heart to express this freedom that I felt with having my first car.
I know you've spoken about before the idea of fighting perfection, and I wondered how you've come to terms with that and how you've come to terms with releasing music that's so vulnerable.
I'm such an overthinker, so it's become daily practice to shut that part down and just be like, no. Mm-mm. In my head, there are some things that are like, yeah, this is clashing. Like, no, don't leave that. Fix that. Or these chords don't go together. Or what are you actually saying here? So those kind of things, I'm like, yeah, okay, let me fix. Or let me try something different. But for the most part, yeah, like especially melody, especially things like lyrics, when they feel right initially, trust it. Because I am such a heavy taker. Like, I'll do 30, 40, 50, 80 takes and then come back to like the first or the second one. So it's just like, yeah, okay, let me actually learn from this. But hey, I mean, also too, like, don't be afraid to sit on a beat, sit on a song. Like, some days I'll put my initial thought down, move on, work on something else, come back to it in a week and be like, I actually don't like this. And then you try again. So I'm not saying, you know, trust your initial thought and never look back. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, as corny and cliche as it sounds, you will know. Like, it's this kind of overwhelming feeling where it's like, this is exactly what I want to say, what I want to hear right now.
Was releasing music ever difficult for you?
No, only because I use SoundCloud as a diary of sorts. Just be like, yeah, I just put it out and just like keep working. Because in my head, I'm just like, every time I'm getting closer and closer to what I want. So I've always had this relationship with releasing music as a release within me, for me. Only when people like comment on it or I'm seeing my follower count go up on SoundCloud does it remind me like, oh shit. Yeah, okay, people are listening to this. This is kind of awkward. Oh no. But yeah, I mean, releasing this record, Hold Space for Me, through Mom and Pop, it was just like such a different perspective on how the industry views releasing music and how artists perceive releasing music in different ways. But yeah, to me it's just like, yeah, I just need to express it and get it out of me. It's releasing music to me is sort of just like, yeah, it sort of feels like writing down how you're feeling or your fears or what you don't like, and you know that I guess it's like some sort of therapy or something, but you can like throw it off a bridge or burn it or something. That's what releasing music feels like to me. It's just like, yeah, let me write how I'm feeling and then let it go.
And I love this concept of the test tape that you have, where you share these little demos and remixes and ideas that maybe won't fit an album, parts of songs and things like that, and you just upload them as a mix on SoundCloud. Why did that become part of your process?
Test tape for me is very crucial to my artistry, only because I don't care what anyone has to say about what are on these tapes, to the point where I don't name the songs that are on there. It's just one giant song. And I needed that in my life only because as I was seeing antidote sort of rise in the way that it has been doing, I was getting really scared because I know how that song came about, but I don't know why people like it so much. So I just started thinking about that. Like, why do people like this? What do people like? What are people? It's like, but it just like made me be like, oh gosh, like I have pressure on a thing that I started doing to relieve pressure. And so test always brings me down when my head starts to want to explode. It just brings me down and it just reminds me that, hey, you can do whatever you want. It's fine. Like, I don't care if people like test tapes or the test tapes. I don't care if no one listens to them. And it just gives me an outlet outside of, my more serious things to still express myself, but I don't want to sell them. Like, yeah, because I love sampling and stuff, and I'm like, that whole process trying to get everything clear is so annoying. So I just put them out into the world and move on.
At what point did you decide you were ready to start working on an album? And what was the early part of that process like?
I think I've just experienced so much that I was making songs and then they just sort of became the album. So I was just like, today sucked. Let me write something. Or I guess a definitive moment for me was when I lost a friend of mine due to senseless violence. And it just really put a lot of things into perspective for me. Like, I never know when I'm going to be here. I have no idea when it's my time to go. And that sort of thinking changes everything. I'm like, okay, I want to get something out of me in a serious way. Because if I were to pass away and a collection of fleeting moments and daydreams was the only thing out there, I would be okay, but I wouldn't be as happy as I am now. Like, I feel like I've grown so much and was able to show that growth between the two projects. And leaping now from Hold Space to Me to what I want to do next, same thing. Like, I'm so excited to just grow and make as much as I can for as long as I can and sort of just give the world the art I make before it's too late. It's definitely this yearning that I have to release that I don't know where it comes from.
At what point in the process did you feel like you had an album rather than a set of songs? When did you get the title and the concept and stuff like that?
The concept came and the album name came very late very late into it. I just knew I had these songs that all made sense together. And I constructed the beats, wrote the lyrics, had pretty solid demos for the most part. I mean, Lightning was the messiest, only because it really took Jake Aaron to really see where I wanted to go with this song. I showed it to multiple people and they were like, this is messy. I don't know what you're trying to do. Yeah, but for the most part, it was just like, yeah, these all make sense together. Like, and so, yeah, we were getting all that done. And then during the mixing process, Birds Gave Up just kind of slipped out of me. And I was like, I want to put this on the album. I don't want to add anything different or anything. I just like recorded it here, recorded the vocals here, mixed it myself. And I was just like, I don't want to make this any complicated, but this has to be on there. Because I did feel like the album was missing something. And I was so happy that there is so much space between finishing something and then releasing, because you have this window to really make sure before you pour the cement that is exactly what you want it to be. So I'm happy that song kind of like slipped out of me so we could add that in there. But yeah, this, just like everything in my life, I like to have a plan, but I love to go with the flow, especially with art. So I just knew these things made sense. But the concept came a little later when I was discussing with my partner just everything. I was just feeling everything so much that day specifically. And I'm the type of person that doesn't really feel comfortable feeling my emotions in front of people. Because I just feel like a burden. Like I've watched people sort of get uncomfortable with me when I'm feeling. So it was just sort of a brand new feeling to be expressing how I was feeling and not feeling like a burden and feeling like my thoughts and all those things were valid. And I don't know, they really held space for me. And I've just watched that act be so transformative in my life to the point where I'm like, hey, that's all I ever want when I'm doing this music thing. Like, I don't care if it's the best. I don't care about accolades or anything. If you're going to listen to my stuff and you're going to listen to these songs, I feel like in a way you are holding space for me. Whether you come from it with negativity or positivity, each song you're carving out like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 4 minutes for me to express how I'm feeling. And I just think that's really beautiful with music in general. So that's sort of how that concept came to be, because I was like, yeah, that's all I ever want, honestly. And I want to do that for other people too, because people have to understand that it's also transformative when you hold space for people that you don't necessarily love and that get on your nerves and you don't share the same morals. But like, if you can, I guess, I don't know, be the bigger person, for lack of a better phrase, sort of like hear them out, see where they're coming from. You know, 1, not to fuck with them. 2, they're literally maybe crazy. Or 3, they're hurt and they need love in some form, in some way. So it's a lot of emotional work, but it's so necessary. It really changes lives.
Obviously, you just mentioned Jake Aaron, who came in and did some co-production on the album with you. How was that process of opening up and working with a collaborator after having worked alone on music for so long?
It was an adjustment. I definitely went into it being like, I don't want to change anything but the vocals. Like, I just want to re-record my vocals. That's it. And he was like, cool with that. But then as we were going on, I was like, he would suggest some things that could make things better. And I was like, okay, good point. It was a lot of just like swallowing sort of like the pride that I had. Demoitis is also very, very real. It's a real disease. You listen to something for so long that it just is right in your brain, but it could be better. So overall, it was a really good experience. I feel like I've learned a lot. And we did have a few bumps just because I felt like I wanted things to be what they are. And because he's such an amazing person, he kept them that way. But he also was just prepared and ready. I mean, I've never worked in a studio before, so it was just so amazing to just have these different kinds of mics and super expensive mics, and to be in a space where, your bed is not across the room, or, you know what I mean? It's just like you're in here to make music, and that just kind of puts your brain in a different mind state. So it was really cool. I think I got really lucky to work with someone like him because I think he understands what I'm trying to do. And he understands that I want to continue producing and I'm more than just a voice, and sort of like aided me in that way. And my favorite part was everything that he was doing, he was explaining. So he was like teaching me to the point where finishing up that album, I've just learned so much about Pro Tools, about gear, about, how to EQ stuff to make things sound better and to give space for certain instruments, and the vocal, because I used to mix my vocal really low in my previous tracks, only because I'm a little insecure about my voice. I'm not like the best singer, but it's a good enough vessel for me to get across my poetry. But he sort of like gave me the confidence to sort of push the vocal up and have it really like sit in the track in a really nice way. So that's really cool.
Do you ever feel like your role as a producer is overlooked?
Yeah, but I feel like one of my goals is to make sure that doesn't happen. So I think with this album coming out, hopefully I can perhaps get some, producer inquiries and be like, hey, like, can you make a track for this? Or I've gotten a few already, which feels really nice, but also it feels really scary just because I'm like, oh, like I know how to make beats for myself, but I don't necessarily know if you want the kind of beats that I make for myself, or do you want me to use my taste but make something that caters more to you? So it's just a lot that I need to unpack to sort of really get the respect and like be on that path of just, if anyone wants to work with me just for production, they could. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say now just because I'm so, like I said before, I feel like such a baby. Like I feel like I'm like just walking into this for the first time and looking around and still in awe that people even care enough to listen. So in my career as a whole, hopefully that doesn't happen. But I feel like people are still discovering me.
There's a part at the end of Holy Water where we hear a flight landing in Paris. I wondered what the significance of that was.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've loved Paris for so long. Definitely romanticized it, and yeah, I mean, my partner is a musician as well, and they were going to be touring out in Europe, and yeah, they took me to a French restaurant here in Philly, and she was just like, yeah, come to Paris with me. And I was like, what? What? Oh my gosh, are you serious? And I cried in the restaurant, but like, not dramatic. It's just like silent tears of joy, of pure joy. And yeah, I went, and, I like to record little sounds just in general, like if I'm walking down the street or I hear a cool conversation, or, so that's just already in me. But something has told me to just get this because I don't know when I'll be back. And this is possibly the coolest thing that's happened to me. So I just wanted to put that in there because Holy Water is also a love song, and I really love this person, and it just makes sense. Like, our love really grew and continues to grow, but it definitely grew a lot while we were there. So just felt right. If anything, if I listen back like 30, 40 years from now, hopefully what happened to me when I listened to that Fred Hammond song could happen, and I could be instantly transported back in Paris or on that flight and remember how I was feeling.
And how does travel in general influence your creative process?
Oh man, it influences so much. I've always loved the idea of traveling, and getting able to travel has changed my life so much, and is part of the reason why this whole thing sucks. Because it's just like, wow, even like going somewhere close, like a national park, is like not even an option. So I do feel a little stifled in that way, but I don't know. I think it's really important to just see outside of where you are currently. I love traveling so much that I would even watch like traveling videos and like, I don't know, just like 4K videos of people like walking through the streets of like Japan, or, just to feel like I'm there with them. So it's really important.
What do you think's the most important thing that you've learned from the process of making this particular album?
I don't think there's one thing in particular, just because I've learned so much. But if I had to pick one, I think doubt. I think learning about doubt and learning about the negative effects and the positive effects of doubt, and learning what to do when you start to doubt yourself, and recognizing when you overcome that, or when you do doubt yourself, why. And then learning to answer that why is just helps with so much. So it's like I doubt myself. I feel like I can't be a singer, or I feel like I can't produce for someone else. And then you ask yourself why, and then an answer or not, you get an answer. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's not a thing. Or maybe I do know why. But then why do I feel like I can at the end of the day? So it's just, I don't know, just being very inquisitive when doubt comes into your mind has been something that I've learned throughout this whole process, because I was really scared. I was really scared to not necessarily make the songs that I did, but put them out. And yeah, I'm really happy I pushed past that. And I hope I continue to do so.
And was there anything that you read or that you watched or any conversations that you had that helped you to push through those doubts that you were having?
I started reading Billie Holiday's book, Lady Sings the Blues. And I'm like, yo, she was so different at a time where I don't even know if that's necessarily a good thing. I mean, it was racism during when she was coming out, but also she was doing something that not a lot of other people were doing. So there's a risk there. Yeah, it could go good or it could go bad. And just, she had like drug problems and stuff. But when you see past that, I see a very strong woman. I see a woman that didn't care what was popular, didn't care about anything other than her art, and singing. And that's something I strive for. I mean, obviously she cared about the people in her life. Like me, I care about the people in my life. But I really want to get to this point, which I feel like I'm getting there every time I release. Just get to a point where it's like, nah, what's popular, I don't care. Like, I want to do what feels right to me. And she was a really good example of that. Same with Nina Simone. Same with a lot of people that I look up to. It's like a common denominator.
What are you most proud of about what you've been able to achieve so far?
Persistence, not giving up. That's my proudest achievement. There's just tons of time where I felt like maybe I should do something else or whatever. So I'm really happy about that.
And lastly, what does success look like to you?
I guess being able to continue to live off of my craft. Like, I haven't had a regular job since 2018. So that's been a blessing tremendously. And if I can continue to do this, then I am successful in my head.
Thank you for listening to Making Conversation with Grant Brydon featuring Orion Sun. If you like this episode, then please be sure to rate, comment and subscribe wherever you're listening to podcasts. You can find Orion Sun on socials and listen to her album Hold Space for Me on all streaming services. You can find me on social media at Grant Brydon.